Hey, Jane, you ready? All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Beautiful house today. We've got a lot on our agenda, so we'll get moving quickly today. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board briefing. Board meeting, excuse me. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. Our meeting is live streamed and you can join us online by going to our website. Other options are available at tctvonline.com. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining us via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. And for those in the room, if you can mute your phone so they don't ring during the meeting, that would be fantastic. And with that, I think I mentioned everyone signed the guest book. Welcome to our meeting, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Scar, will you lead us?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Deb, do we have anybody for public comment? I didn't see one on there either, but no? Okay, thank you. Nobody for public comment. We have today, we have non-agenda items. We have 3 unscheduled agenda items that we'll be taking after agenda item number 9. So we will begin today with a presentation from the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council Annual Report. Mike Wendell, Coordinator, Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. Is he not online? Well, we will skip that and come back if we need to.
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. We shall move on to our legislative administrative agenda items. Agenda item 6 is the consideration of approval of the county retirement plan. Kevin Willie, RVK Investments Incorporated. Good morning again.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Thanks for coming in person.
Of course. So for today, we have 2 items for approval. We'll start with the investment policy, which we put forth a few weeks ago. So when we first became your advisor, middle of last year, one of the first things that we wanted to look at was the investment policy. We believe having a strong policy for a retirement plan can help lead to better governance and better outcomes over the long term. So we looked through your policy, which had last been updated in 2017. And we made, I think, a fair amount of changes without really changing the spirit of the policy. But we did want to, I think, add some clarification and update for what we consider to be best practice. So at a high level, some of the changes that we made included expanding some of the language around the prudent investor standard, which is referenced in Oregon state statutes about best governance practices for state or municipality pension plans. We clarified roles and responsibilities of all fiduciaries, including the commissioners, the investment advisor, the custodian bank, and the actuary, and recommended formally establishing a regular review cycle for the policy. So we recommend at least every 2 years, as opposed to, the last time it was updated a decade ago. By reviewing it every 2 years, you probably end up making small changes more frequently as opposed to large changes, every 10 years or so. And I think importantly, clarified the goals of the pension plan from an investment perspective. So the number one goal is to invest assets to be able to meet the pension obligations that have been promised to beneficiaries. And part of that is achieving the 6% return as stated as your actuarial assumed rate of return. We also updated the strategic asset allocation in the investment policy to more closely match how assets are invested in the portfolio. And as part of that, we also added benchmarks to each of those asset classes. We added a formal rebalancing policy because as markets move, you may have a set target to a specific asset class, but as markets move, you're going to drift from that. So what is the process for bringing those assets back in line closer to target? And updated some investment guidelines and risk controls. So making sure that you have wording in place to make sure you don't have 10% of the pension plan assets in a single stock, making sure you have caps on non-investment grade bonds or non-US bonds, setting duration limits around cash securities and other fixed income securities, and really I think clarified some of the language around prohibited transactions. The pension plan should not be a buyer of derivatives or short selling commodities, unregistered securities, some of these very high risk securities that don't really make sense for a pension plan. Added some language around manager monitoring and evaluation, as well as watch list and removals process. So making sure we have different standards for both actively managed funds as well as passively managed or index funds, formalizing the process in terms of making sure that it's occurring over a full market cycle, which we would estimate to be about 5 to 7 years, as opposed to looking at very short-term results. And making sure that we do have quantitative tests in place, but also qualitative ones as well, because a qualitative issue can often be a precursor to some quantitative issues like poor returns. And then establishing a clear process for when there is a manager that has an issue, what is the process to remove them? They're placed on watch, we identify replacements, we bring those to you for approval. So I think that's kind of the key changes that we made throughout the policy. Overall, I think it's, without making it too lengthy, it's still only about 8 pages, while still keeping things, I think, fairly specific when it needs to be.
Great. Kevin, I appreciate the way that you've explained this to us. And for those interested, we had a detailed discussion. This is just a summary of the March 30th quarterly retirement review presentation they did. So it's on our website. If you go to the agendas, you can look it up. And if you go to today's agenda, you'll also see all the numbers that he spoke of, as well as investments that we're using. We have 2 retirement. We now are running with PERS for new employees, started last year, January. And so this is management of our existing previous retirement that we will all be on, hopefully. So anyway, comments, questions?
Thank you. Kevin, thank you for your work. I support the changes that you've made. As Mr. O'Neill said, we talked about this at LinkedIn.
Your microphone, American.
Thank you. We have talked about this and had a chance to review it, and I'm fully supportive of these changes. Thank you.
As am I. I just really appreciate the depth of explanation that you've provided in our previous meeting. We learn something new every time. So the pension is a very big financial commitment of the county, and the time and effort put into it is really super important. And having a policy that very clearly and very carefully sets the course for how we assure that our employees will have the retirement that they have earned. It's probably one of our top things internally. So I appreciate your work.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And just for clarity, the fund's doing pretty well. I think we're ready for a motion.
All right. Mr. Chair, in consideration of the approval of the county retirement plan, I move approval.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin.
There was the second part of the manager structure recommendation as well. I think it was all lumped into one agenda item, but
Okay,
I'm happy to cover that separately.
sure.
Um,
Only have one thing. I'm reading my script and I only have.
So, in kind of in concert with the updated investment policy, we did take a look through the portfolio as well. And, a couple of the key observations that we brought to you, and then in a subsequent meeting brought forth some recommendations, but the key observations were there's probably some unnecessary complexity, too many investment managers in the portfolio. There is such a thing as over diversification, and I think that the current portfolio is that way. But there were also some very large, I think, risks that were being taken in terms of having a large amount of exposure to emerging markets, having a very tilted U.S. equity portfolio towards the value end of the spectrum, kind of underweight some of the growth stocks that have been doing very well over the last decade. And so we took a look through kind of the whole portfolio and came up with a recommended lineup for you all. And we looked to continue to balance active and passive management, look to reduce the total number of managers, and where possible, reduce fees. So overall, within U.S. equity, for instance, we added some exposures like a small cap manager. You didn't have any small cap exposure in the U.S. equity market. We reduced some of that value overweight, and we're able to reduce the total number of managers in U.S. equity from 9 to 5, so a much more streamlined portfolio. Within international equity, we reduced the emerging market exposure, which was about 60% of the portfolio. It's now being brought down to 25-30%, much more in line with kind of market weight. Within fixed income, we're able to reduce manager count from 5 to 3 without materially changing exposures, and within real estate, reducing manager count from 3 to 1. And so all of that said, we were able to reduce total number of managers down to just over a dozen. We were able to reduce fees from 29 basis points annually to 27, which, savings of 2 basis points, that corresponds to about $25,000 a year. So not an insignificant amount of money at all. And we're able to, I would think, overall simplify the structure and balance it a lot more, where you're not taking these large kind of outsized positions to certain areas of the market. You're a little bit more closer to the fairway, if you will, in terms of a balanced approach, which I think for a pension plan is a very prudent approach.
Great. Comments, questions?
Closer to the fairway is
I
good.
love that.
Agreed. Never where I am playing golf, but yes, closer to the fairway.
We don't have a motion.
Do we need a motion for this one as well? Yeah, it's all in the one we already passed. Okay, perfect.
Great.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
showing
so
up.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work on this.
That's Mike standing by the door.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may we take a minute and pull out a couple more chairs?
let's do that. Yeah, we're gonna take a minute and just get some more chairs out so we can accompany our full house. I also want to look at the thermostat.
It is, I know, right? Look at what happened.
Waiting for my thumbs up. Thumbs up. Jane, you're rolling. Okay, welcome back. We had some chairs and check on the thermostat. We are now ready to go back to our agenda item number 5, which is the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council annual report. Mike Wendell, Coordinator, Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. Welcome to our full house.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to put the presentation for our council sponsorship, and so I'm Mike from the Tillamook Bay Watershed Council. Just going over the year 2025, just some of the things I wanted to talk about. We have received full funding from our Oregon Water Enhancement Board Capacity Grant.
Yeah.
So we were able to come back in the fray as a nonprofit, 501(c)(3) nonprofit. So we are starting to continue our work. Part of that was hiring me as the council coordinator to be put on to implement this work. So that happened back in May of 25 and has since progressed from there, following that grant as well as our next funding grant. And our grant actually increased to $175,000 for the biennium 25 through 27. So that was really exciting to have. And so we're moving forward with some of that with finalizing of our motions and approved strategic action plan as well as our organizational plan for the next 10 years. So we were able to finalize that as the Watershed Council moves forward. Other things that are at the top of mind right now is just continuing our county sponsorship and continuing work by seeking letters of support and pursuing other grant opportunities to do a lot of restoration and conservation projects in the area, specifically partnering right now with Stimson Lumber and other business holders in the area, especially concentrated in this southern county right now. Moving forward, I think there's other applications to be put out within the Water Enhancement Board. We're going to be putting in for some more grants there. And we're also going to be conducting our landowner engagement outreach campaign here, but that's for 26. So going back into 25, we did also have one fundraiser to raise about $600 for the Wild and Scenic Film Festival for the Watershed Council. So that was a success in our engagement. We'll be doing that again this year. Great. And other news than that, any questions about the Watershed Council or anything to? That's all I have to report.
Sure, I would just share this is actually a really exciting moment. So I think Mike downplays that piece of it. The Tillamook Bay Watershed Council really took what I would call a couple of gap years where they really spent some time reorganizing and determining what their path forward was. And there have been just a whole bunch of people engaged and involved to make that happen. So shout outs to the board members of the Watershed Council. A special shout out to Melissa Graper, who works for DEQ, but in her volunteer capacity stepped in with that board and really helped everybody understand what we needed to do to build the strongest watershed council possible. I had been helping, but I knew how to do nonprofits. I didn't know specifics to watershed council. So she just did a fabulous job alongside the board members. We have some great folks from ODF who just really anchored the board through this time to make sure that we didn't lose a watershed council in Tillamook County. And as we talk about regularly, when we talk about the work of Public Works and Salmon Superhighway and all of the fish habitat restoration, fish recovery efforts that happen in Tillamook County, we couldn't do them without our watershed councils. That is where the actual on the ground work happens for a lot of that fish restoration. So having Tillamook Bay Watershed Council back in the fray, doing the work. I know you're getting ready to do a large woody placement, I believe, with Stimson. You know, this is really fantastic and really important. So I just want to acknowledge sort of the gravity of the moment. Commissioner Bell may want to as well. She was here a couple of years ago when the decision was made to kind of just help the Watershed Council through this window of time with full belief that we would get to where we are today. So I thank you for taking the position and leading it forward in its next sort of phase of life. So.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague. This is a celebration, truly. And I'm delighted that you're in the position. Welcome. We're glad to meet you. And because you weren't here for the last several years, you didn't go through the same period of angst about, oh my gosh, are we actually going to lose this watershed council? It's really been a dire possibility that we're thrilled didn't happen and didn't have to happen. We went through the process, and thanks to Commissioner Scar, we asked her to be the liaison because she had vast experience with nonprofits. And we thought maybe she'll be able to help move that process. And she has. So thank you for your work on that. And I'm just delighted because I think that there are so many things, values that we have in common as Tillamook County citizens, and clean water is one of them. Habitat restoration, the health of our fish, I think everybody wants that. And so your work is just so important, and this really is a celebration. It's a big deal. So I look forward to your presentation next year and reports about the excellent work that you're doing. Thank you.
I agree with my colleagues, and this is another example of the amazing collaborations we have in this county between multiple agencies to accomplish one goal. We have another group in here that we'll be talking about later that it's doing the same work. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm excited about the film festival.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to great things coming out. So thank you.
That's excellent. And thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you for being with us today.
And you're welcome to stay if you want to.
No pressure. We have a lot of things to go through today.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 7. It's consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Helping Hands Reentry Outreach Centers for Oregon Criminal Justice Commission 2025 to 2027 Grant Program Behavioral Health Deflection Services. Melody Ayers is here representing our Tillamook Opioid Substance Use Response Project Director, Adventist Health Tillamook.
Good morning, Commissioners, and we are here again, and just to set some history and context for those who may be listening, and quite a few that are still left here from the water presentation. Tillamook County has made the decision to go forward as a community partnership in addressing opioid use and substance use disorder in our community. And so, like with making clean water, helping people live clean and sober lives takes a village. It takes all of us. And so today I got put on the agenda as presenting for yet another funding stream that helps yet another community partner. You'll be hearing shortly from another community partner related to this same grant. But the Behavioral Health Deflection Grant for 25-27 from the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. There's a lot of acronyms I have to keep up with. And so one of our partners is Helping Hands Reentry. And I believe we have Josh online. And Josh, if you're there and you can come become visible. This is almost like Star Trek where people, he may not be on there. Okay, some trouble. So in that, I thought I can't really talk exactly for our community partners, but Brianne Prince from Helping Hands Reentry is here. And to give just a little explanation, I know you've got like a gazillion agenda items today, but to take this opportunity to say, here's what Helping Hands is doing to help folks on their recovery journey. We have, since we have started doing active outreach, deflection pathway, we have, Bridget gave me the updated numbers just this morning, connected 35 individuals to services. Not all of this is treatment, some is housing, some are other needs that they have. And so I'll hand it to Bree just now.
All right, so, yeah, what we're doing is you guys will connect people to us. We've got housing beds available. We have over 70 beds available, but this grant is, reserving is this one spot? Is that?
I think this is one.
Okay, so.
There's another
one
grant
bed,
that
so-
has more than one.
Yeah, when Bridget's out doing the outreach, we have a spot at all times, 24 hours a day available for if somebody's needing housing, and it's just kind of to bridge the gaps. Maybe somebody does want to go to treatment with this this whole behavioral health deflection grant. If somebody's wanting to go to treatment and the bed's not available, they can come to us temporarily, and then they can go to treatment and they come right back to us. We have over 70 beds total, and we're just working to get people housed.
And I think that there's case management that is done while they're
Yes. So we do have a case manager. People have to be working on setting goals and working towards achieving them to continue to stay at our facility. The first 30 days is just an emergency shelter up to 30 days. If a person wants to join the program sooner, they can. One of the perks of that is getting to move upstairs, getting to have a door on your room. That we have life skills classes, and some are just basic, maybe some people have never even had an ID or they don't have any of their IDs at all, social security card, birth certificate. So we work on getting all of your forms of ID, getting you ready to re-enter back into society as a functioning member. And there's required for self-improvement meetings per week, which is NAAA. It could be church, it could be group therapy, it could be anything that's going to encourage you to move forward in a positive way. So
we appreciate the partnership with Helping Hands. We also, in the next agenda item, I don't want to steal their thunder, but we also have CARE Incorporated, a local agency, and it takes all of us because there's housing that has some additional requirements, and then there's housing that is what we call low barrier or no barrier. And to be able to meet people where they are and to encourage them to make a new choice or make that choice that will start their pathway to healthy living. And that's what we want to offer is as many choices and no wrong doors. Come on, if you're ready for a change, our Tillamook, the deflection pathways, any of the agencies that are working with this partnership are ready and willing to help.
That's great. And I appreciate both of your hard work on the deflection program and all the work. And Bree, I appreciate you've been involved in the beginning of that and provided some really good insight and input during the early stages of us considering that. And I know my colleagues are both going to have a lot to say, so I'll let.
I will try not to say a lot because all of you know that this is something I could probably talk for hours about. So I will try not to talk for hours. I want to share my my gratitude for both Helping Hands and CARE who are with us today, who are key partners by making sure that there are beds available for people who are experiencing houselessness, who are ready to be somewhere other than under a bridge in Tillamook County. And for years and years and years, we did this work without having sheltering partners. And Helping Hands came on as a sheltering partner 9 years ago,
I think it
something like
was
that.
2015,
2015, so about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, came on as a sheltering partner in Tillamook County and has made a world of difference. Having a shelter, I mean, I could go on forever, so I won't. So I'm going to leave it there. Just a fantastic sheltering partner and their expansion to having the upstairs for folks who say, I'm ready to move from emergency shelter to a program. That's phenomenal. CARE, we'll talk about in the next one, but I'll just throw it in here since it's contextual. Opened their East Village just before I left CARE in 2021, which is a sheltering site, and then they have since opened an additional one. So over the last 10 years, Tillamook County has really done an amazing job, our partners in Tillamook County, of adding this service, and now in partnership with the deflection program, making it possible for someone to say, as Bree said, I'm ready to change. And I need some supports, and having a place they can go to that very day, a place to sleep that very night with staff who are there saying, I'm here to support you. How can I help you? Let's make a plan. 10 years ago, that just did not exist. So we've come a long way. And I want to thank Adventist Health as our deflection partner in this case, managing the deflection grant with Bridget Kahn, who does a great job with the outreach, Melody, who makes sure our dollars are where they need to go. It's a game changer for the folks who are in need in Tillamook County. So just thank you all. And I appreciate that this grant pays for an open shelter bed. That's the magic moment.
Great.
Thank you. I am also very grateful for this work. I think that the way that a government supports its most vulnerable citizens is reflective of the values of the community, and we care about our most vulnerable citizens. We do genuinely, and I appreciate what Melody said, that it takes a village, because particularly in a small community, there isn't any one organization that can take care of all of these needs. So we build these coalitions that can work together to address these needs. I'm grateful that Brianne Prince is here. I'm grateful for your excellent work at Helping Hands. You do a wonderful job. It's nice to have you at our meeting. And just last night, it's interesting that just last night I was writing about a period about 15 years ago when before we had any shelter beds, we had, and Aaron was the director of CARE. I was at the Headlight Herald, and CARE started the Warming Center. And the Warming Center was simply a safe place for people to go who were sleeping outside in dangerous weather. And it was entirely volunteer staffed. And so Aaron was standing up this program that had no funding whatsoever and no place and no nothing, no infrastructure. I was at the Headlight Herald trying to recruit people because we needed dozens of volunteers, and it worked, and we did it, and it was effective. But this is so much better. It's so much better. We've come so are in 15 years. So much better to have these programs in place and to have shelters where people can go when they need a safe place to be, and where people can change their lives. Not everyone will, but a lot of people will. And then that benefits the entire community. So I'm very grateful.
Wonderful. Well, I agree with my colleagues and I'm fully supportive of this agreement. So I think I'm ready for a motion.
All right, Mr. Chair, in consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Helping Hands Reentry Outreach Centers for Oregon Criminal Justice Commission 2025-2027 Grant Program Behavioral Health Deflection Services, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you so
carries.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We will continue on, which a similar item, agenda item 8 is consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Community Action Resources Enterprises, Inc., which is CARE, for Oregon Criminal Justice Commission 2025 to 2027 Behavioral Health Deflection Grant Program Services. Corin Kolovic, Project Manager, Community Action Resources Enterprises, Inc. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. First, I'd like to introduce our newly seated Executive Director at CARE. This is Elizabeth Asashi Sato. I'd like to echo what Melody and Brianne said about community partnerships. This memorandum is an example and demonstrates exactly just that. I started with CARE back a year ago, May, and one of the very first committees I sat a part of was the Deflection Committee with Bridget Kahn. And really it was just a discussion about what this needed to look like and what it could look like. And there really wasn't a lot of meat on the bone. And over that year's time, we have brought this to full circle, asking now to sign the dotted line and move forward with a full circle plan and funding to back that up. CARE's portion of this will be on this portion of the grant, we'll be able to service shuttle services between the CARE facility and the Helping Hands facility, as well as being able to provide driving services to take individuals in need of assessments and to detox facilities. That'll be able to take care of a shuttle driver, as well as care for a vehicle, gas, mileage, that sort of thing. As well as CARE will be able to designate a bed unit for an individual that will be going into the program. So at any time that a law enforcement or emergency services personnel or any partner in the community identifies an individual who says yes, that they are ready to seek services for a substance use disorder, and they need a bed for the night to get them to that first step, an assessment or a detox or wherever that first step is, CARE will be able to step forward with a bed for them for that stopgap. So that's a really important ingredient to have. And then that participation in the outreach services alongside with Bridget, which is going out into the community, planting those seeds with this audience of folks that are impacted by substance use disorder. It's really about watering that seed until something blooms. It's really meeting them where they're at on a consistent, regular basis, sharing with them that you're available, that you hear what they need, that you have services available, and then approaching them at just that right time where they decide the time is now that they're going to accept that offer and move forward with a change. And so you just never know when that's going to happen. And being able to have beds available and a driver available and the services ready to go is what's most important, to be responsive to that when that's ready to bloom, we're ready to service. And so that's what we're able to do by accomplishing this here today.
Great. And welcome.
Thank you.
Say anything, Liz?
Yes, may I please? First of all, I'm very honored to be here before this commission. The beautiful thing about a diverse commission is having the skill set and the experience, the historic experience, the service experience. And Aaron Scar was instrumental, along with Chris Leahy, who's in the room, on our board in recruiting and hiring me in this position. And if you're wondering where I came from, I'm one of those, I'm on Portland, or I have web feet, so I'm from Portland. And I'm not going to rattle off my academic or other credentials, but I want to tell you, I'm here, living here. I just moved in last week. This is my first full week as an executive director. We had our first board meeting last night, which went very, very well. But I'm here because this board and Aaron and Chris said, we want more accountability. We want to make sure it's more than just having a village. I know that's a cliche that we've used and sometimes overused a bit. We have to have a village of people that also can execute and utilize those funds in a way that is responsible to the stewards and to those who provide those funds. So whether it's private sector, public sector, wherever those funds come from, you had my word that one of the key things that I'm here for is to ensure that those dollars are spent not only wisely, but in service to where we've requested those funds. So all of you who have worked really hard to get those funds, we're going to make sure that we work effectively and collaboratively. It's a small world. Just when I was watching RVK do their presentation, I sat on the investment committee for the Confederated Tribes. I was the executive director for HR of 2,500 employees, and RVK was a part of that. And then I hear from the watershed. Well, so many of our tribal nations work with watershed councils, and I hope that y'all will work with the Tillamook folks. And we're connected here. So I'm here because, as Chief Seattle once eloquently put, everything is connected. We're this beautiful tapestry that's pulled together. And by moving here, I'm letting you know that I am very committed to this community. But it also inspires me to see the heart of the commission and in your service, not only to those who voted you into these positions, but to those who are most vulnerable. So I would agree with you, Mary. It really illustrates where your heart is. And interestingly enough, my colleague was asking me about what's your doctorate about? And I am currently finishing up my thesis, and it's entitled A New Way to Lead. I'm a part of the American Leadership Forum, which Joseph Jaworski started I want to encourage you to be a part of that with the American Leadership Forum in Oregon. So many of our senators and commissioners and mayors are part of that. But it was started back when Watergate was in the headlines. And I won't tie any correlation to anything presently, but at the time, both father and son were saying, we're in a crisis right now. And it's a crisis of leadership, and we need to find a better way to lead. And so my doctorate is about a better way, a new way to lead. And I will share that with you when I'm done, but it's going to take about a year to finish. But I'm honored to be here. And in the Native tradition, I want to share with you that, so I come from, my mother's Japanese and my father's Native American. And I bring with me a wealth of cultural and familial training. And so I'm just very honored to be here, honored to serve. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for all of that information. I just want to recognize when the deflection program was first initiated, it was determined early on that Tillamook was going to have to kind of blaze its own path. And thankfully, we have these partnerships, and there was a lot of trepidation whether it would work, whether it was the right move. The state was pushing a certain agenda.
Yes.
Or a certain pathway, and we were like, it's for many reasons it wasn't going to work here. We won't call attention to Jane. Scott Video Productions. Anyway, it was one of those things where, and we had a lot of meetings and discussions, and I just think it's amazing. And I appreciate the work you've done, that Melody's done, Bridget's done, the Helping Hands and CARE, the local police department, the sheriff's office. Everybody has just, I think, circled in and focused on this issue. So I just want to say thank you for that. I know my colleagues have more to say, but, and welcome. And welcome to Tillamook, and I hope you enjoy your new home.
Yes, I love it.
No, thank you for that framing for deflection, because we haven't followed the traditional path. Deflection came out of the, I think it was Senate Bill 4 or Senate Bill 4002, which was the refinement work done after Measure 110. So everybody, Measure 110 made drugs not a criminal offense, and everything kind of got a little wild for a while. And everyone agreed that there needed to be a step back on that, and a step back was taken. It was a heavily negotiated bill at the state legislature that did include all the same part in the state legislature that we have included in our community. But what they really said was it had to be a law enforcement sort of supported program. And what we figured out in Tillamook County is capacity wise and otherwise, it just did not make sense for this to be a requirement that law enforcement sort of pushed you into, that we were really at a place where we were looking at people who were ready for a voluntary program. And so we did that. We said, okay, we're not going to make it dependent upon a law enforcement contact. We're not going to make it dependent upon a pending criminal charge. We're going to make it because people want help. And that has been 35 people. I mean, that's phenomenal. And, it's a huge piece. The question that we so often hear from our community is, why don't you do something about the people who are living unhoused? And why don't you do something about the people that I see who are obviously in distress on our streets? Where are you? And to me, our approach to the flexion is we're right here and we are where they are. We are coming to them in a space where we aren't coming to twist their arm. We're coming to offer. And it means that some people won't take us up on that offer right away, right? But we continue to offer. The people continue to go out and do outreach, and they talk to people multiple times. They continue to offer, so that when that moment is right, which Corin really talked about, when that moment is right, we're still there. And not only are we still there, we are there with a place for them to go right now, a bed to sleep in that night, a person to help them. And it does take, as we've talked about, a village. It's this whole spectrum. If they are ready to be clean and sober, they might find themselves at Helping Hands in a sober environment. If the first step they need is detox and treatment before they can really commit to sobriety, they may be at care in that night by night shelter. So we are creating that continuum of spaces that says, we are meeting you where you are. So, I mean, it's absolutely crucial. So, and I appreciate Commissioner Bell reflecting back to 15 years ago when we were giving away tents, tarps, and sleeping bags at CARE because there was no shelter available. CARE had a really strong advocate in the community, Pastor Terry Sprinkle, who said we should start a warming center. We should do this. And he led an effort largely through his church and made that possible. So my greatest thanks always go to Pastor Sprinkle for his beginnings. And they go to those sitting in front of us today who are in this next leg of the journey, who have the resources to move this forward in another way and in a further way. So just, I again, could talk for hours. My heart is full. I am grateful. I am thankful, and just delighted with where we are moving.
Right, and just to your point too, the fact of being where they're at, I literally have a vision of Bridget with her wagon.
Yes, Bridget goes out. Yes.
And also Tillamook Family Counseling is also
Yep.
going to be a partner in this. And one of those things you say is, folks that are in the throes of addiction, it sometimes takes many, many contacts with them to get them to make that decision. And the same thing with mental health disorder. So I love that we are actually physically, literally walking around and building that trust so that they will trust the system without a heavy law enforcement hand.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion about deflection and the fact that we chose our own way to go with deflection, and it's working. So I think that's really, it's dynamic work. I appreciate your work for CARE, Corin, and welcome, Elizabeth. It's delightful to meet you. Welcome to the community. We look forward to working with you, and I'm excited that you're here. So thank you.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Mr. Chair, in consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Community Action Resource Enterprise, Inc. for Oregon Criminal Justice Commission 2025-2027 Behavioral Health Deflection Grant Program Services, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carrie, thank you. Okay, now we could just skip 9 and make these folks.
Wait till the end, because then it
Push
would
agenda
feel
item 9
like
to the
we
very
had
end.
an audience for the whole day.
We have a full house, and this is for agenda item 9, and I'm very grateful for them to, all of you guys to show up. These are my fellow Netartians have invaded the conference room today, and I'm happy to see them. So this is agenda item 9, consideration of a volunteer adopt a park agreement with the Netarts Enhancement Committee for the Netarts Boat Basin project. Dan Kai's Director, Parks Director, welcome, and Roger Miller, also part of the enhancement committee. Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Commissioners, thank you very much. We appreciate your time this morning. When I first had this plan about the enhancement project for Netarts Boat Basin, one of the first things I had to do as the Parks Director said, well, this is great, but how are we going to maintain all this? And so I know that we catch a lot of flack now for, not getting the grass when it's not low enough in a lot of places. So Roger at that point said, you know what? We've got some folks that are very dedicated, that really want to make this happen, and that are willing to put in their time and effort to make this and keep this this project beautiful as time goes on. And so what happens is that we're looking for a long-term solution about how to move forward with this. And I looked around, and what happens, it just so happens that the Oregon Parks and Rec Department actually had a program called, well, Adopt a Park. So, I'm not shy from borrowing other people's ideas. And so I did. And essentially what it does is it spells out what the purpose is, who we get into a partnership with. Also, I think what's most important, and I think that it's probably taken some time to get through the review process, because the adoptive park draft started, I believe, before the new policy for the volunteers did. And so what happened is that the new volunteer policy came out, and we had to make sure that this complies with that policy. We want to make sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And so if this does pass today, we've got a follow-up meeting on Monday with a representative from the HR department to get further clarification about exactly what's needed as we move forward, so we can take care of that. I think that a lot of these are just general conditions here. I think that the biggest part is when we get to the back center about, well, what is it they're going to do? How is it that things are going to get done? It really identifies the details about their work that they be conducted out there. And because this area is public park property, parks will definitely be involved in every facet of the maintenance component of this. And we're working obviously closely with the Netarts Enhancement Committee. There's really not much else to say, except that, and I said it at a meeting last night in Netarts, is that I believe that that public-private partnerships are extremely important. They allow us to do things that we might not otherwise be able to accomplish by ourselves. And I have one question here. Guys, who here is here for the Adopt a Park agreement this morning? Okay. So we brought a lot of friends with us today. And I've just been really overwhelmed by the support coming out of the Netarts community, not only for this project, but for making sure that it remains beautiful once it gets installed. And so, Roger, is there anything else that you'd like to add to this by chance?
Well, I gotta stay with the village theme, right? I mean, it does take a village. We have most of our village, right? I have a commitment from at least 25 people to help out as needed. This project is going to be mostly native plants, gardens. So native plants, they still require maintenance. It's not a zero maintenance type of situation. So we're going to need to get out there and take care of them, prune them, weed, all that sort of thing. There's going to be king tides that bring debris in. We're going to need help with that. That's what this agreement is all about. So I appreciate your consideration, and I also appreciate the support of all three of you for the project. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for coming. Dan, I just want to say I appreciate your leadership and your willingness to work with the community like this and to find a program and borrow the idea from state parks. I think it's fantastic. I'm excited. I'd love to see this inspire other communities within Tillamook County to reach out to you and say, hey, we'd like to be a part of this as well. So I'm super excited and very supportive of this. I'm sure you have a lot.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm excited about this also, and I'm very grateful to the community of Neatarts. So thank you for being here, all of you today, and thank you for your work. Thank you for your commitment to volunteer in this effort. And I'm reflecting on maybe a couple years ago, a group from Neatarts coming and talking to us about the Neatarts City Park. And, you know, for anybody who's watching who doesn't know, Neatarts is not a city and doesn't have government infrastructure other than the county. And so they, as citizens, are taking on responsibilities for the betterment of their community and asking for support. So you know, Dan talked about the public-private partnership. It's fabulous. It's ideal for us to be able to work in partnership with people in communities for the things that you care about, that you want, and particularly the things that you want to work on. So it's I just think this is very exciting, and I'm grateful to Roger in particular for. I've had the chance to look at your renderings, your design. It's just inspired. And so thank you for your leadership in this project.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I think that Tillamook County is an interesting place because our 7 incorporated cities start at Tillamook and go only north. There's nothing closer to the ocean and nothing further south. And yet we have very urbanized areas, Neatarts among them, that really don't have the benefit of local on-site government in that way. And so we are that local on-site government, and we can't do it all at the level that cities do it. So as communities, we do appreciate so much the willingness that you have to step up to volunteer. And I love that we have a formal process that we can do so that, you know, we're just all really sure what to expect from one another, because that's something that we're missing by not having a city-county relationship. You know, in that relationship, we're super clear. What does the city do? What does the county do? In this case, we have this great group of volunteers and we have the county. So how do we suss it out? And I appreciate the agreement, the formality, the willingness of everyone to say, yeah, let's do this thing and let's be clear how it's going to be done. And I just really look forward to what that boat launch is going to look like. We've boated over there for years and I've seen it in various states of disrepair. So the idea that we can now get it to a state of full repair and beautification is fantastic. So I really also appreciate everyone on your side who's willing to jump in and say, I want to be a part, and we're in. So thank you for that.
Great. All right, so ready for motion.
Okay, and I'm assuming that this has been through Brian and Rachel, or it wouldn't be on our agenda. Had to pull a Commissioner Yamamoto there. He used to always look at the attorney, and now I always figure it happens, and so. Okay, so Mr. Chair, in consideration of a volunteer adopt a park agreement with the Neatarts Enhancement Committee for the Neatarts Boat Basin Project, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, members, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in. Okay.
Now we're going to move on to the boring county stuff.
Oh, and don't call Chris boring.
We got Marlene.
Oh, Marlene,
first.
first it's the Marlene show and then it's the Chris show. Okay.
So more standard matters of the county.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay. Let these folks.
Yeah, we'll give a second, and let the room empty, which we knew would happen.
Yeah. Good morning, Marlene.
Good morning. I'm ready for
Okay.
my boring presentation.
Appreciate you being here. We're going to take all three together, so you can just speak to all three. That would be fantastic. And then we'll just do separate motions on each one of them. So the first one we'll start off with is unscheduled item number 1, consideration of a personnel requisition for a new regular full-time community health clinical manager in the Health and Human Services Department. Marlene Putnam, Administrator, Health and Human Services. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we've appeared, I should say, I'm speaking on behalf of the Community Health Center and Health Department in the past couple of weeks with other items related to updating to our job descriptions or adding new job descriptions and positions within the Health and Human Services Department. And these are in that same vein. So the first item is for a new position or modified position called a Community Health Clinical Manager. We've in the past looked for a clinical nurse to fill this role, and we're received no applicants for those positions, and we're hopeful with adjustments to both the job description and the compensation that we will receive applicants for this one. So we are now kind of reinvigorating our efforts to put this position in place. The second item is related to a grant-funded position for a community health interpreter, 1 or 2, depending upon qualifications. This is new to our department. Usually we have our care coordinators, now called clinical care coordinators, interpret for patient visits in Spanish and also do all of the referral process. So we're looking to enhance both the skill set of some of our staff and community folks who may be interested in becoming certified to serve as solely the interpreter function within patient visits, both in person and virtual. So new position, we received some grant funding from Columbia Pacific CCO to assist us in our meaningful language access efforts. So it will fund this position for at least 1 year. The next position for a personnel requisition is the traditional health worker. This position in particular is also grant funded. This is funded through our Federal Rural Health Network grant, where we work with our healthcare partners to seek to improve health outcomes for community members, wherever they may be receiving their health care in primary care clinics, behavioral health clinics, etc. This will allow us to hire 1 FTE to serve as kind of a hub role among these partners to receive referrals and assist people to address pre-diabetes. I mentioned this in another grant previously. And those are the purposes for each one of these items or requisitions before you, because they have not been budgeted. So it's before you for that reason. In part, 2 are grant funded, we didn't know receive it. The other one, the position didn't exist yet. So there you go.
Fantastic. Questions?
No questions. I think this is all a good idea.
Wow.
I am fully supportive.
I am as well. So I think we're ready for some motions.
All right, we'll take these each individually. Mr. Chair, in consideration of a personnel requisition for a new regular full-time community health clinical manager in the Health and Human Services Department, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Next.
Mr. Chair, in consideration of a personnel requisition for a new regular full-time community health interpreter, 1 or 2 in the Health and Human Services Department, I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, in consideration of a personnel requisition for a new regular full-time traditional health worker in the Health and Human Services Department, I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. The motion passed. Thank you very much, Marlene.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
Okay, Deb, we're going to go with Rachel next because it's related to the health department. So we're going to jump to agenda item 19, which is consideration of a new regular full-time personnel requisition for a Health and Human Services Administrator in the Health and Human Services Department. Rachel Haggerty, Chief Administrative Officer. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for moving that up.
You're welcome.
So Marlene can get on to some other business. As you know, the county's Health and Human Services Administrator, Marlene Putman, plans to retire this summer. And as much as we don't want to think about this, we must recruit for her position. So we are actively recruiting for our next Health and Human Services Administrator, and it actually closes on Sunday. As a matter of process, we need to talk about the board's approval for the position profile that has been actively recruited for the last few weeks. Staff have presented the proposed process and to the board during a February board briefing. And during which time we described the process where the full board would ultimately convene an executive session to meet with one or more candidates and then discuss how to proceed following that executive session in a final interview. One of the requirements of state law governing executive sessions is that elected officials may convene and close executive session to discuss finalist qualifications only after those qualifications have been explicitly approved by the governing body in an open session with the opportunity to for the public to comment. And so that is the purpose of your consideration of the position profile that is linked with the agenda that Prothman created. So we are in the middle of the recruitment process, and while we have discussed it publicly, council has advised that the board, to be compliant with state law, should consider approving of the position profile, even though we've been recruiting with it. So today is your consideration of the position profile for the Health and Human Services Administrator position.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to remind viewers that it's on the agenda. It's at the very bottom since it was going to be taken to the last item. So any comments or questions?
Just as Rachel said, we hate to see Marlene go. Marlene has been at the county for, well, at least at the health department. Yeah, I'm thinking I know she's been at the county well over 20 years because she was at the county when I arrived in the county, which was 22 years ago, and at the health department for, I think, 12 or 13. So it's been a long time. She's done a fantastic job. I know she prefers not to have the public accolades, so I'm going to give them to her anyway while we're sitting here. But it's going to be a very difficult position to fill. So I'll stop with my accolades, but there are many more I could say. This position, we are excited. We have a recruiter with Prothman. There are, I think last I heard, 10 applications had been received. So we have our fingers crossed that we will receive a good recruitment for her replacement. And I know that we will all be involved in that. So I have seen the profile. I think that we are on track. I think we know what we're looking for, and let's hope that that person is out there.
Fantastic. I mean, it's encouraging to have that many
It's encouraging to have 10 applications, and that was probably a week ago when I heard that. So I'm hoping that means there are even more. So fingers crossed.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague that it will be very hard, perhaps impossible, to replace Marlene. I think that Marlene has done an extraordinary job in her leadership of Health and Human Services, and I anticipate that this will be one of those positions where we realize, if we haven't already, that we will come to realize that, oh, actually, this is the work of 2 or 3 people. And so I have my fingers crossed. I'm hopeful for the candidates who have applied, and I'm very grateful for Marlene's work, and I'm excited for her that she has that there's light at the end of her at the end of her tunnel, and hope of time to herself this summer. So I support the profile.
I support the profile as well. I think there'll be lots of time for accolades moving forward. And I know that Marlene just said that this is a really difficult decision for her. And I think it's she's excited about the new adventure, but also I know she'll be watching meetings and paying attention. Even though I wish she wasn't. And I appreciate that, not just for these larger executive director positions or director positions. I think the county's moving forward. When we know there's going to be an opening, we start the process earlier now, so we can have some of the institutional knowledge be included in the search when we identify really worthy candidates. So I appreciate all the work you've done, Marlene, and your work on this profile as well. So I'm ready for a motion.
You're ready for a motion. Okay. Mr. Chair, in consideration of a new regular full-time personnel requisition for a Health and Human Services Administrator in the Health and Human Services Department, I move approval.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you, Rachel.
And thank you, Rachel.
Okay, let's go back up to where we were. It is now, we're back with Chris. Oh, with Justin. Hopefully he's online. Agenda item 10 is consideration of professional service agreement with Great West Engineering for construction, consulting, and support for the Pacific City Transfer Station improvement projects. Justin Weiss, Solid Waste Program Manager. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, commissioners. Hope all is well. Quite an eventful morning today. Lots of interesting topics to be discussed. Mine's more on the standard side. We've got the agreement for Great West Engineering for our Pacific City Transfer Station improvements. We're moving into the construction phase here. We actually just, with Nicole's help here in Public Works, got the call for bid rolled out, and we'll be opening the bids in mid-May as intended, but this final agreement will be getting us through the construction phase. This will be our last agreement with Great West for the 2 satellite transfer station projects in Manzanita, which is wrapping up in the next couple of weeks. We'll be finishing the expansion up there, and then we're pivoting to Pacific City. And again, both of these capital improvement projects are funded through stormwater grants and state loan through the stormwater or the state revolving fund for stormwater infrastructure. So funding's in place, and we're excited to get moving forward with that project down in Pacific City. It'll be expanded capacity for collection of garbage, yard debris, as well as recycling moved indoors so we can keep people out of the rain in the wet season for maximum recycling. So happy to answer any questions if you do have any, commissioners.
Okay, wonderful. Any concerns or questions, Commissioner Bell?
Thank you. I don't have any questions for Justin, and I am supportive.
Okay,
Same.
I am as well. I'm ready for a motion.
So, Mr. Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with Great West Engineering for construction, consulting, and support for the Pacific City Transfer Station Improvements Project, I move approval.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, commissioners.
Turn of events, we don't have an extra question for him. We always make.
You usually have an extra question for me. I already know the answer that the yard debris thing starts May 1st.
Oh, good.
Those
Perfect.
the coupons again are what they are. All right, moving on to number 11, Cassandra, come on down. This is a consideration of an Oregon Department of Revenue County Assessment Function Finding of Assessment, the CAFA Program Grant Application. Cassandra Larson, our elected assessor. Welcome.
Morning. It's funding, CAFA Assessment Function Funding. I said that right. I think you said finding.
Oh, I did. Funding.
I don't mean to correct you.
But she does.
But I do.
Know what everybody else does, so.
Good morning, commissioners. Last year, I went into quite a bit of detail about the CAFA grant, so I'm gonna not do that this year. But I still want to highlight what it is. The CAFA grant started in the 1980s when the Oregon economy was kind of in a dive, and it was taking its toll on the property tax system. The legislature was getting complaints about assessment and taxation functions not being able to be met or meet statutory requirements. The state recognized that they had a obligation and a part in making sure that we could meet our adequate minimum levels for valuation of homes and maintaining accurate real market value. So every year we apply, this is an annual grant, we apply for the CAFA grant. The pool of money that we apply for comes from a partial amount of delinquent interest off of property tax revenue, and it also comes from part of a recorded document recording fee at the clerk's office. A few details about the application process is one of the things is that to participate in the program, we have to maintain minimum requirements such as appraise all Measure 50 exceptions timely, create a ratio report and trend values to maintain required real market values, calculate Measure 50 change property ratio and maximum assessed values, create the assessment and tax roll, resolve appeals timely, and calculate and collect and distribute taxes. What signing this resolution or CAFA grant means is that when the funds are received, that you will allocate 100% of those funds to Assessment and Taxation Department. I hate to bring the room down because it's been a great morning for meetings. But what I wanted to touch on is that the CAFA grant, the amount of revenue that we have received has been declining for a number of years. How it is funded is not indexed to keep up with inflation. Delinquent interest isn't indexed to keep up with inflation, and neither is the percentage that we get on the document recording fees. At one point, CAFA was 30% of our department budget, and now it's down to around 10%. I wanted to share just one chart with you, if that's okay. What this chart represents is the A&T budget that is submitted for the CAFA grant. Now, it's not just our budget. There's components in there of the clerk's budget, the IS budget, cartography, and the treasurers, because it takes all of our departments to make the assessment and taxation office work. So the green chart, the green bar represents how our budget has changed over, how many years do I have up there? Since 2009. The blue chart represents the revenue we receive from the CAFA grant. As you can see, it just sort of stays the same. I think our highest year was about 500,000. Now we're down to about 333,000. The red line is the ratio difference. What we receive compared to what our budget is. So over the course of the years, instead of having money from the state to run our programs, we have to draw more from the general fund. So I'm bringing this to you because as you move forward in your meetings with the Association of Counties, you have a greater understanding of the challenges that we have, and that the state, we have tried to work with the state to increase our funding, but have been unsuccessful as an association at this point. But we're going to keep trying.
So this year's session's answer to you was they were doing a study, is that right? Do you know when we'll have that study back? I'm sure someone at AOC does, but off the top of my head, I don't.
I don't.
Okay, because that was the legislature's answer. So in the long session last year, they said no. In the short session this time, it was, well, we'll do a study. So the only good news is it's not completely off everyone's radar. It just has not stepped forward into a position where we've been able to get a bill on the table that we can move through there. So that is certainly the hope for this coming year. So AOC is setting our legislative agenda now, and I know we're working with your association on that to make sure that this is one of them. It was a priority in both of the last two sessions, but it's a priority for counties, not for the state, which is where we're running into our hiccup, is they don't really want to give us any more money, and we really need to continue to convince them that they must. So is there anything you would add to that, Cassandra, from a strategy or legislative piece?
I would just add that if we cannot maintain our accurate values and get out there and get new construction, that it doesn't just affect the county, because it affects all of the taxing districts. It affects our fire districts, water, sanitary. So it's not just us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you hear me talk about the tax system all the time. That's my, latest soapbox. But the tax system is built in partnership with the federal government, the state government, county government, special districts, how we all get what we get. And this is a key piece of how the tax system is built. Without the assessment departments, the tax and assessment departments of the counties, the rest of that all falls apart. So it is absolutely key, and we will keep.
Thank you.
Driving that home to the state folks and try to get that bill on the table, and keep pushing it forward, because it is absolutely crucial. Going from 30% of your budget to 10% of your budget is, again, as you pointed out, the rest of that comes from general fund. And if we are having to put that amount of general fund into the assessment department, we are not able to put it somewhere else. And so we're all tied together as departments, and we only have so much general fund, and the assessment department and the tax department are key pieces of how we get the revenue we do get. Right. So we're not blind to that. Unfortunately, apparently the state is. So we have to keep working at it.
There's a lot of counties that are assessment and taxation departments that have had to cut staff, and they're in trouble. And so it's almost as if we're back to where we were in the 80s, when we were struggling to maintain staffing levels. So if the state could get involved once again and recognize that they have a responsibility to maintain uniformity in values throughout Oregon, that's the goal.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
One more thing I wanted to touch on is that CAFA predictions. The state economist has predicted that the next fiscal year, CAFA might come in 5% lower than this year, and then 4% lower than next year. The reason for that is that he has analyzed document recording fees, and that's part of how it's funded, and that in the next fiscal year, they expect them to be relatively flat.
Because as people are not buying homes, building homes, that's a lot of, I think, the documents that get recorded, isn't that correct? So that those document recording fees drop when the level of activity drops. And as we've been sitting in high interest rates, definitely drop that activity. And then an uncertain economy that we currently are facing drops that activity. So, you know, we're going into a challenging window of time. And the state's budget is going into a challenging window of time, which means getting them to give us more is going to be harder to do, because it's going to mean they have to identify a new mechanism or update one of those two mechanisms that you've talked about with the document recording fee and the delinquent interest.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I'll stop, because again, this is one of the things. We go on wonky numbers and policy, and there I go. So thank you, Cassandra. And I know you have been a leader in that work for the assessors, and I just appreciate that you do that. A lot of assessors, you know, that's not their cup of tea. They don't want to get out front, and you haven't been afraid of that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bill.
Thank you. Cassandra, I appreciate your work in that of your team. And I know that this grant application itself is a heavy lift. And it's disappointing that this heavy lift results in considerably less revenue than it used to. I didn't know until today that the difference was 20%. It used to be 30 and now it's 10. That's certainly concerning for all the reasons my colleague explained. And I really appreciated your chart, your graph. So thank you for showing that. It's the classic example of increasing revenues, decreasing, or increasing expenses and decreasing revenues. And I think it is imperative that the state acknowledge that by decreasing their level of support, they're endangering our programs. So thank you very much.
I would concur with both my colleagues. We do appreciate graphics, as we talked about yesterday. And I'd like to take this opportunity too, because when I hear you say it, I think that's lost. It's lost a lot in translation, is that the importance of the assessor's office. It's our number one source of revenue for the county, but it's also the revenue source, 100% revenue source for special districts.
Right.
And what we forget is that the county gets 12%. For the county out of your property taxes. What I'm going to use this for a few minutes is to call out to any special districts. I see one in the room back there. Any special districts in the county, fire districts, all the other special districts, school districts that receive money, they should be jumping on this fight with us for CAFA, because if it helps you with assessment and increasing revenues that way, it helps all of them. And we're only getting 12%. And everybody else is, you know, we're serving up the cake. And we need help, and we need the voices of each association that's out there for these special districts. 100%. Fire Chiefs Association, they all need to step up and help the county fight this fight with the state. It's just another way that, like you said, the state's not going to open their wallet and give us any more money. They're going to just keep holding it tighter. More voices, more people at the table, make it harder to say no when you're saying no to teachers and you're saying no to fire districts and EMS districts throughout the state. So I just want to use that opportunity. I want to thank you and your work with your associations. And we have a lot of people in the room here. Sarah and Chris are here, and Christy was here the other day. It's like we have these great leaders in our county that are really involved at the state level with AOC, with all these other associations that are fighting these fights. So I think if we make it a priority of all of those separate ones, maybe we'll make some headway, because there's definitely strength in numbers. So I appreciate the work, and I am supportive. So
Perfect. And the last thing I'll say is that the state ties our hands all the time about what we can do to raise revenue, right? So not only is it that we have to convince them that they should partner with us, they're not even leaving us with an option to do our own solution. So somebody asked me, why don't we just break free from the state at one point? And I said, well, we are actually technically a subdivision of the state. And as a result, they really have constrained us in a lot of ways on revenue, which is challenging. They take it in your income taxes, and we don't get it back. So lots of work to do.
Great.
All right, Mr. Chair, in consideration of an Oregon Department of Revenue County Assessment Function Funding of Assessment, CAFFA program grant application, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Cassandra.
Cassandra.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Sarah Absher. This is agenda item 12, consideration of the authorization of submittal of a legislative text amendment and zone change in Tillamook County Comprehensive Plan map amendment. Exciting stuff. Sarah Absher.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. With me, I invited Mike Sandin, the port manager for the Port of Garibaldi.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Visit, get some backup here this morning.
Yes.
So I am here today because I need authorization on two matters from the commissioners, should you agree with what I'm requesting. And this has to do with an upcoming dredge project for Tillamook Bay. The Army Corps of Engineers has been working with Mike and others on a dredging project to dredge the channel that runs, I would say, from the docks in the marina, probably to the tip of Bay Ocean Spit. Is that kind of just visually?
Yeah, the federal channel runs pretty much from the entrance to the boat basin at the Port of Garibaldi, and technically goes all the way out into deep ocean. But the section they're talking about right now is just the entrance to the port there. Gets a lot of sediment buildup right there. It's all the sediment coming down the Miami River, and it's gotten to a point where we've got boats running aground almost daily, trying to get in and out of Garibaldi.
So the situation is, the Army Corps has agreed to do the project. What the Army Corps has not agreed to is following the provisions of our land use program for where they cite the materials once the dredging is done. And they are also not interested in getting permits. And so I have been talking to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development over this last year, and have had other meetings where the Army Corps of Engineers has joined us. And the predicament that we may be facing is that if we do not find a way to permit and move this project forward, it just simply may not happen. There was a recent situation that happened up in Clatsop County on the Columbia Bar with the Army Corps. The governor's office got involved and the work got done and the permitting got done. What we need to do in partnership with the port and others to get this project to happen is I need to update our comprehensive plan to allow where they want to dispose the dredge material to allow it to happen, because right now where they want to put the dredge material, it's prohibited in our environmental impact assessment and our policies that go with this type of activity in Tillamook Bay. The second thing would be authorization to waive the fees. The fees for the department to do this type of work are $4,500. It requires multiple hearings. I need to work with the state because, like the Goal 18 exception we did a few years ago, it is basically going to be that process. So a bit sobering, but I do agree with Mike for economic benefits, transportation, safety. This project is important to our county, and I am happy to do the work with the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and others, because I'm not a biologist. So I have reached out to our state partners to help obtain the information that we need to make those amendments to our comp plan that, with an updated environmental impact assessment, could potentially say that these dredge material disposal sites that the Corps is proposing can work. This matter is also time sensitive. The Corps is on a tight timeline. You have in-water work windows. Mike and I have talked about who would be the applicant for this. I think if we do this, Tillamook County is the applicant. But So question one is, do you authorize me to do this work in terms of starting the process in partnership with state and local agencies to do the work? And then two, waive the fee.
It's not my fee, it'd be the Army Corps of Engineers fee, but a little background on all, the dredging is becoming a statewide problem. I am on the state dredge committee. I'm also one of the executive board for the Oregon Public Ports Association, and all 23 of the Oregon Public Ports right now are facing dredging issues. Both financially, our budgets are, I'll talk about special district budgets, I could sit here all day. Dredging costs alone, just commercial dredging just for our boat base in pre-2020 was probably about $600,000. We're looking at about $2 million now, to a point where we're not even able to do it. I've engaged quite a few conversations with the Corps and the Oregon Public Ports Association. We all agree that we have to start looking at steps to mitigate sediment deposit as we move forward. We're not there yet. We have a plan we're going to be trying to work on with the Corps to help mitigate the deposit in the Garibaldi Boat Basin and that federal channel. So in the future, we can limit dredging needs for dredging, but we're not there yet. The other thing we're working on is once the jetty, working with the Corps, and they've been very receptive, but we're working, once the jetties are complete, and a lot of you guys may know that we're based on what's called a self-scouring bay. And that data is based from the 1913 flow data. That's why the Garibaldi or the Tillamook Bay Bar never gets dredged. So as soon as the jetties are complete, we're working on getting a stepped channel put in so that we can hopefully restore some of that flow, which will help possibly alleviate this. But again, all those steps we're looking to take we're not there yet. And if we don't get this dredged, and sometimes the Corps, they like to badges. We need those stinking badges when it comes to permits, and but we need to get it done. So.
Okay, well, I'm sure everybody had something. I would like to say a couple of things. One, I am absolutely in support of dredging. It needs to happen. It's essential for the vitality of our fishing industry. I get my own personal take on this is I wish that we could change it so we could make dredging easier for even our own boat ramps. I'm not a scientist, but the material that is there came from here during a flood and went there. And we're just trying to put it back there. Essentially, naturally the water and the sediment is moving constantly. So I'm fully supportive of giving you the opportunity to do this work and waiving the fee. I have no problem with that, but I'm interested in having what you guys have to say about this.
Sure. So I am in support. I think this needs to happen. I am curious on a couple of fronts. So we will be working on an EIS with the different agencies. So at the end of the day, the different agencies could say, not a good idea for a place to put that sediment. Is that a possibility?
It is, Commissioner. There's two analyses that are already underway that I've been participating in. One is shellfish beds.
Yep.
And the other is fish migration. And so I've learned a whole lot about those two things the last few months. I think there's a commitment of everyone working together, understanding how important this project is and how badly it's needed. Because the reality is that if we don't find a way to work with the Corps, this project could just simply not happen. So I think we are going to do everything we can to where by the time that EIS is done and we are going to hearing, that we have our best foot forward in saying this is actually okay.
That we have found the best possible.
That we have found the best possible place.
And we are protecting our shellfish and we are protecting our eelgrass beds, which are the salmon migration areas that have been in conversation previously around mechanical oyster harvest and other things that damage those and the importance of those.
Yes.
So the EIS process will balance those environmentally sensitive areas, environmentally significant needs with a location to deposit sediment, to Paul's point, that is our sediment in our sediment system.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that right now it's not where we want it in our sediment system. But the EIS process is to really try to figure out where can the Corps put it that doesn't damage things and keeps us out of trouble with
Right.
the state land use system, because I think that's the other piece of this that you have stated, but to be clear, the state land use system governs us.
Correct.
Even though the Corps tends to believe it doesn't govern them, and doesn't really seem to have concern that we are putting ourselves potentially at risk in order to let them do their work without such permit. So we are really working very hard to, I don't know, I think what our consultants say, stay on the fairway, right? Stay on the fairway here where we are going to work within our land use system, i.e. the change to our plan, and we are going to work within the environment with ODFW, et cetera, to try to find that one pathway that
Correct.
says we can do this, state will allow it here. It doesn't cause environmental damage if we put it here. There's our spot, right?
Exactly. That's what we are working on now because that will be the application.
Yeah.
Right. So being involved in that now and then bringing that forward to the planning commission and then to you at a future date.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that for, anyone who's watching or listening to this and thinking, one, this is stupid, we should just be able to dredge, understands that where the county's hands are tied, and those who are listening and thinking, but what about these environmentally sensitive areas? Aren't you paying attention? The answer is yes to both.
Yes.
And so I appreciate, Sarah, you bringing this forward in this way for us to really try to get to the best possible answer that does not ignore either of those things, either what the state requires us to do, which could put us in jeopardy with the state for any number of things if we have a misstep, and for the protection of what makes Tillamook Bay special.
Well, one thing I'd like to point out too is I don't want to make it sound like everybody at the Corps is part of the evil corporate
No.
overlords, but the majority of the folks that are working out of the Portland district are great to work with, and they do care and they do understand and they do sympathize. But like the rest of us, their hands are tied in certain avenues as well. So
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we don't mean to villainize anyone
no,
except the people in Washington DC that we don't actually know, right? So that's where the core leadership is that will villainize.
Thank you. Well, I agree that this work is essential. We absolutely need to do it. We need to do it soon. And I support your proposal, Sarah. Something that I love about this job as a lifelong learner is that every day I get to learn new things. So for example, I did not know that with the federal partners like the Corps upon whom which we are dependent, we're absolutely dependent, that they don't have to comply with Oregon law somehow. I just learned that this morning. That's the first time I've heard that story, that they can just say, yes, we'll do the work. No, we won't follow your rules. Fascinating. And also, I did not know, and we won't pay the permit. Okay. So also, I did not know that the Port of Garibaldi is supposedly a self-scouring bay based on 1930?
So it's the entire Tillamook Bay, not just Garibaldi. So entire Tillamook Bay. Tillamook Bay used to be a deep bay. They used to bring boats all the way up to Tillamook. But at the two events that have changed that was the Tillamook burn, and there was decades and decades of sediment coming down these rivers, as well as the blowout of the Spit, 50s and when that happened, the flow going out wasn't, so that's how the bay got so filled in, and the flow just isn't there anymore. So
And they were dredging the sloughs and stuff at the time.
and they were, yeah, so that changed that flow data. So we're working is trying to get the stepped channel in, which would restore the federal channel out between the tips. Once the jetties are fixed, we can get that flow back out, and hopefully that'll restore a bit of the flow to the entire water system.
Fabulous. I'm glad. I'm not surprised, and I'm grateful that you're working on a plan for that. And I've fully acknowledged that the dredging needs to happen now.
Yeah, and I apologize because we have not been to the weekly briefs in a couple years, so we haven't been keeping you up on some of that stuff.
And Commissioner Bell, I would just add to that, the Corps does have to comply with state law. In fact, they have to comply with the Coastal Zone Management Act that is determined by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. And there's a chicken and an egg situation there because they can't determine consistency unless I tell them the project is consistent with local ordinances and vice versa, right? Which is why we're all in this together. The risk is that if it becomes too much for them, they will not continue to be interested in doing the project. And so we are all working together to meet their needs to support this project.
And some of their issues come down to funding. We have to lobby for all our funding. We send folks back to DC, and for this, we had to get them to declare this an emergency a couple of years ago because we had boats running aground at low tide. I got my phone full of calls today from people that are running aground. And so we lobbied, got them the funding for this project. And then, like I was saying, the projects are coming in so much more expensive now that it wasn't enough. So we had to go back and lobby for more. Now they finally got it all. So it's not just a quick overnight thing, and they're trying.
We're all trying to save the project.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, I want to first of all, thank you for your Coast Guard service, but I was wondering if you could just also speak to how dredging and repairing the jetties has to do with public safety. If you could kind of make a correlation to me, I know based on that.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, so the Tillamook Bay Bar itself has become shoaled up. Everybody wants to talk about the Columbia River being the most dangerous bar. I've run all these breaking bars in the surf, and this is one of the worst because there's no channel out. Over the years, it's just continually silted in, and a lot of that has to do with the failure of the jetties, because when the jetties are lined up, they're working like a garden hose on straight stream. When they're not, it's a garden hose on spray pattern, and what's happening is all that sediment is not getting pushed out into deep water that is coming down, and it's just getting deposited on the bay. So as a result, we get breaking surf on the bar and no safe channel, no safe passageway. We get boats that are getting in trouble in there. So with that being said, getting the jetties fixed will hopefully restore that flow, but then we also need to kickstart it by digging a hole on the bar, and by the next phase of getting a stepped channel in there would dig that 40-foot whatever channel straight back out and restore the navigation channel back to the federal channel straight out. Right now, Coast Guard has nowhere to mark or recommend even a safe channel in and out of the Tillamook Bay because of the result of that. So that's what our hope is. That's what our plan is. That's what we're shooting for.
Right. Well, I appreciate your comments, recognizing environmental impacts, and I appreciate all the discussion. For me, it's a personal thing. When I first started at the sheriff's office, I was a Marine deputy. I was the one that I did the investigation on the Taki 2 that sank in 2003 and killed 11 people. And a big part of that was the conditions of the bar.
And a lot of that started that.
Yeah. And so having been the first on scene for that, it's very important to me to have that bar safe as possible for an Oregon Coast bar. But I appreciate your input.
Well, one thing we're working on, I don't want to take too much time. We'll need to do another have the
You're
commissioners
welcome to come back to any board briefing. We'd love to.
Well, we were doing for a while where the commissioners would come do a quick meeting at the port office.
Love to have
We'll do that again, but I totally lost it. We're trying to identify other things because right now, roads, runways, all these other forms of transportation within the state get external funding. Right now, when it comes to like our personal dredging, the ports are all responsible for that funding, and there's no outside source for that funding whatsoever. We have to take out loans just to dredge our boat basin. So at a bigger level, we are trying to tie this into the statewide transportation plan and start getting dredging as a whole more recognized as part of that intermodal connectivity project.
And to that point, Sarah, I just going to ask is because it is a commerce, and it can be interstate commerce, but it is commerce. Does that change anything about these permits and getting things to work in our favor?
Like having Public Works pay the application fee?
Well, that sounds like a great idea. Wait, he's my department. I can't say that. Anyway.
No, so it is transportation. It typically would not, waterways would not fall under like the planning element of a transportation plan. But what you're talking about is very relevant to the criteria analysis that's going to come with that goal exception and ordinance amendment.
Okay. I'm just saying some of the flooding that's happening up and causing damage, millions of dollars of damage upstream is causing tons of sediment settling downstream.
Absolutely, which, and I think goes back to the conversation of what are those barriers to try to mitigate that we can look at in the future.
Great.
For
Well,
sure.
I think we're all supportive. I think we're ready for. Thank you for the discussion, everyone.
Yeah, great discussion. Okay, so Mr. Chair, consideration of the authorization of submittal for a legislative text amendment and zone change in Tillamook County comprehensive plan map amendment. I move approval.
I second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Set up a regular meeting with us.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, may I ask for a short break?
Yes, let's take a
This is a very
5-minute
good meeting for
recess. It's
us.
a long meeting. We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike.